coming on the air with the first tropical storm of the Atlantic hurricane season blasting Texas right now. Thousands without power, and another system dumping rain out west has folks literally stuck in the mud. We're going to take you there live with a look at the next storm brewing as we speak. Also tonight, the incredibly dramatic videos out of Pakistan. A cable car barely hanging on over a windy valley 1,000 feet high. Rescuers, look at this, climbing over from helicopters to save everybody inside. How this whole thing unfolded. Plus, former President Trump's co-defendants, at least some of them, turning themselves in tonight, including one who's still clinging to the lie that the 2020 election was stolen. It was not. Why Mr. Trump wants money and maybe not so much crowds ahead of his own surrender. Then Messi mania heads north with some tickets for the soccer superstar's first regular season game in New York, going for as much as a Kia Soul. Why Messi apparently has the golden touch and how long it could last. Plus, why some of the biggest names in the music business are following Taylor Swift's lead, saying thank you next to one of the most powerful managers in the industry. That's later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are starting tonight with a triple threat as multiple tropical storms barrel their way across the U.S., starting right now in Texas, where Tropical Storm Harold, look at this, is pounding the southern Gulf Coast. It's the first landfall of this year's Atlantic hurricane season in this country. 30,000 people without power. Emergency resources just deployed by the governor, with rain drenching the state. And even though there's a risk for flooding, the rain's also somewhat of a relief since Texas has been dealing with record-breaking heat. Pull back, about a third of the country, you'll see, is under some kind of heat alert. Then there's Tropical Storm Hilary, with people digging out from the mud that trapped cars and humans after flooding out west. Mud so thick, you can't even move in it. Look at this, bulldozers carrying some older people out of the assisted living home they'd been stranded in. One hospital in L.A. losing power overnight when backup generators went out, leaving 200 patients in the dark. People in critical condition had to be evacuated. And then on deck, we have Tropical Storm Franklin set to barrel through the Dominican Republic and Haiti in the next 24 hours. We have meteorologist Bill Karen standing by for more on these storms, but I want to get to Jake Ward in Cathedral City, California, to start us off tonight. And Jake, the issue, it seems, is the mud, up to 5 feet of it. That's almost as tall as me in some spots. Give us a sense of it.
It's really amazing to be here, Hallie, because you just forget, you know on some level what it is to be in a record-breaking rain situation. In this region, they saw more than 3 inches of rain dump in a single day. That's nearly half of the annual rainfall here that you would get. It at one point fell in only 6 hours. That broke daily, monthly, seasonal, and hourly records. But what you don't remember is the mud, the ongoing just nightmare that is this mud. I mean, it really smells, Hallie, like if you've potted a plant recently, you tear open that bag of soil, that smell is everywhere. That's why you have neighbors coming out to help one another. And you can see here vehicles up and down this stretch absolutely immobilized. I cannot walk out to show you any further because I will get stuck and lose my shoes, as so many people we've watched have done so far today. The miracle, of course, is that no one here in this region at all have been killed. You mentioned people rescued from that retirement community. We spoke to one employee there, one of the people who had to be pulled out there. Here's how she described the stakes of having the mud barreling down on you.
You will fall down if you don't hold on something. But if it lasts for 30 minutes, we will drown there inside. We will die. Right. That was only 15 minutes, I thought.
Now, just to give you some sense of it, I mean, it's one thing to have brave and helpful neighbors out here with shovels, but what you truly need is industrial equipment. Not only do you need it to move people out of that place, but you need it to move this mud. It is impossible to move all of this without full-sized industrial equipment. And we've seen these guys working all day. A few hours ago, I could not have been standing where I'm standing and walked around. Wow. It is starting to move out. But again, you just can't wait for this stuff to drain. You have to physically move it out. That's the challenge facing this community right now.
And what a vivid illustration, Jake, of the issue here when it comes to extreme weather, because look, it's sunny, it's not raining, the flooding itself is over, but it is the aftermath that is where the, truly no pun intended, heavy lifting has to happen here.
That's absolutely right. And one thing I would just point out to anyone who's facing these kinds of conditions, either here or in Texas or in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, these folks need to be looking for the resources they have because all of this costs money. The recovery here costs money. Here in the United States, one thing I would point out is that even if you do not have flood insurance, even if you're one of those unlucky people who do not, and many people here in California do not, the Small Business Administration has loans to recover from disasters, even if you are not a small business owner. It's something to look into as people all across the country are facing the prospect of record storms and then the aftermath here, Hallie.
Jake Ward live for us there in Cathedral City. Jake, thank you for keeping us posted. I want to bring in now meteorologist Bill Karen. So we have this, as we said, triple threat, past, present, and future. Talk us through what the path of the latest tropical storm is that's brewing in the Atlantic and where the threat is.
Yeah, so we just got the 5 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center, and the first thing that happened was that Tropical Storm Harold is no more. It has now been downgraded to a Tropical Depression Harold. And it's only about 15 miles from Laredo, Texas. This is very common after landfall. The storms lose their wind power very quickly. The rain's still with it, though. And so it's going to be crossing into Mexico in the next half hour. And then it will be into rural areas of northern Mexico, into the mountains. It's actually a greater flood threat for them than it was in areas of South Texas. Highest wind gust, 63 miles per hour. About 30,000 people roughly still without power. So it was a blow, but it wasn't anything horrific by Texas standards. The only isolated concern I have is some thunderstorms on the outer bands. We've been tracking one severe thunderstorm just north of San Antonio. There's a couple others that could form. Those occasionally can put down isolated tornadoes, and that's probably the greatest risk for the remainder. Even by about midnight or so, this storm is completely done and falling apart. The Hurricane Center won't even track it anymore. So let me give you now the update on Franklin. This is a storm we're going to talk about for at least the next 7 days, maybe even 10 days. It's going to linger, unfortunately. The first threat, Dominican Republic and Haiti. It doesn't have strong winds. We're not worried about wind damage at all. Winds are only at 40 miles per hour. It's kind of unorganized, but all the bright white is the clouds. We've had areas of rain in Puerto Rico all day today, and tomorrow the heavy rain goes right over the top of the Dominican Republic. And then after that, then it's going to just sit here south of Bermuda and kind of do a little button hook. And it looks like it's going to linger here off the U.S. East Coast, Hallie, all of next week. As of now, it could become a powerful hurricane, but it looks to stay offshore. So for the East Coast, it looks like mostly just a threat of rip currents and large waves as of now. But again, that's still a week from today, so we'll keep watching it.
Still lots of new information coming in just with that update in the last couple of minutes. Bill Cairns, thank you for bringing it to us here live on the show. Tonight, a group of 7 students and a teacher are safe in Pakistan with so many questions over how they ended up in such a risky and precarious position in the first place. Look at this. Trapped in a cable car, dangling 900 feet up in the air above a ravine, literally hanging by one single cable after a second cable snapped while the group was on their way to school. We have been seeing some just breathtaking pictures of these rescues here. It took like 15 hours to save everybody inside. You can see part of it here. It was so delicate. You had one first responder that would get lowered down from a helicopter, trying to get close to the people inside, trying to pull them out. The problem here is that if that chopper came too close, look at this. That rotor wash would shake the car, making the whole thing really unstable, putting more pressure on that single thread, essentially, that was holding this thing up. So they tried something else. You see here one rescuer hanging from a cable, just pulling another toward him. Watch. This is the moment that one of those kids made it safely to the ground. Obviously, a huge relief for the many people who were hoping that these kids were okay. These cable cars, if you're thinking, well, why were these students in a cable car in the first place? It's actually used a lot in this region. It's got a lot of mountains. That's sort of a mode of transportation to get these kids to school. Some of the time, there are concerns about how well maintained these cars are. Raf Sanchez is joining us now. Incredibly high stakes there. The situation inside the cable car, also very scary. One student passed out because it was getting so hot inside, and you have to think just because of the sheer panic of it all, too.
Yeah, Hallie, we have been covering this heart-stopping story all day, and I am so relieved to be able to come on the air with you now and say there was a happy ending, because it really, for a couple of hours, did not look like there was going to be. This all started, as you said, at 7 a.m. local time. These kids, their teacher, they were on their way to school. That overhead line snaps, the cable car is dangling. The Pakistani military scrambles helicopters. They try to get over the line. They lower commandos down on a rope first to kind of survey the situation, and then eventually they are able to get one of those kids off of the cable car. The video unbelievably dramatic. This child basically taking a leap of faith, the rope catching him. He's rappelled up to the helicopter, but as you said, real technical issues around having those helicopter rotor blades so close to this cable line. And in the end, it was a low-tech solution. It was this group of rescuers and local people from the nearby villages on the edge of the ravine. They had kind of improvised this pulley system, and Hallie, hand by patient hand, they kind of just pulled these people in. And so it was that kind of midnight-ish local time, the Prime Minister of Pakistan was able to tweet, Alhamdulillah, which is Islamic for God's blessings are with us, that the kids were safe, the teachers were safe, and enormous relief in Pakistan, but frankly, around the world right now. Hallie?
I mean, the world was watching every second of this, Raf, it seemed like. We talked about how commonly used some of these cable cars are in this area. What about maintenance, right? What about some of these questions about accountability?
Yeah, so those are the questions that are being asked across this area right now. Cable cars, you said, common way to get around in these remote mountainous areas where the roads are often not good. But Hallie, these cable cars often run by individuals, by private companies. They are not thoroughly regulated. They are not thoroughly checked for safety features, and there are accidents every single year. In 2017, 10 people were killed in a single cable car when one of these lines snapped and the car went down. And Hallie, I don't know if you can tell from the video, these cable cars, they're almost more like elevators. They're tiny, they're open air, and they are hanging by those two cables above, so there is not a lot of fail-safes if anything goes wrong. Hallie?
It's just, it turns your stomach a little just thinking about the risk there, and just such relief that those kids are okay. Raf Sanchez, thank you so much. Let's bring it back here at home to Georgia with lots of action tonight at a Fulton County jail, with several of Donald Trump's co-defendants showing up to turn themselves in on charges they illegally tried to overturn the legitimate 2020 election result there. One of them, John Eastman, the so-called architect of that fake elector scheme that attempted to keep former President Trump in power even after he lost. Here he is, just a couple of minutes after showing up for his arrest, in total denial, candidly, to our Ali Vitale about Mr. Trump's defeat in Georgia and the election overall. Listen.
Do you still think the election was stolen?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Still.
No question. No question in my mind.
That, of course, is not true. Eastman, others have provided no evidence of fraud or that the election was, as you heard it in those words there, that the election was stolen, despite multiple recounts and investigations showing no evidence of widespread fraud. We know the former president's going to take his own turn now at surrender on Thursday. He's going to be in Atlanta for his fourth arrest in 5 months. As in just the last few minutes, we're learning from our friends over at CNBC, including Brian Schwartz, that Mr. Trump has not helped pay the legal bills of his co-defendants. Some of those bills could end up in something like the 7 figures. I want to get to Blaine Alexander, who's live for us in Atlanta. You've been camped out there, Blaine. Give us a picture of the process of these arrests and what could look different when Mr. Trump goes in for himself on Thursday, as he has said he will do.
Well, Hallie, probably the biggest difference will be, one, the length of time that he actually spends inside. So with today, with seeing the first 2 people surrender, we actually got at least some sort of a glimpse at the time frame. And perhaps the best guesstimate is John Eastman. He was inside for about 90 minutes, which, of course, we should point out is a much faster time than you typically see when people are booked in and out of Fulton County Jail. That's something that can span some 12 hours. So 90 minutes is a pretty short time frame. I would suspect that the former president will be there even less amount of time. Remember, the terms of his consent bond have already been worked out. Now, the other question is, what will happen once he's inside? Will he be fingerprinted? Will he be mugshotted? Is that something that, remember, his attorneys have a say in trying to negotiate this? Are they trying to push back on something like that happening? All of those are questions we have for what will happen Thursday, Hallie.
As you talk about Thursday, there are some of Mr. Trump's allies who want to show up to support him there. Laura Loomer, for example, has called for a 10 a.m. rally outside the jail where he is. But for the former president, it feels like it's so much less about getting people to turn out than it is about getting people to part ways with their dollar bills. He is already fundraising off of this surrender a couple of days from now. Talk us through that.
Absolutely. He's put out a new call for fundraising. It's something that we've seen with his previous legal battles as well. Here's what he put in a fundraising campaign email. I'll show you a little bit of it. But basically he says, please make a contribution to peacefully stand with me as I prepare to be wrongfully arrested this Thursday. And Hallie, this really jives with what we've heard from him, like I said, in his other legal challenges as well. And in some cases has proven fruitful. But there are a number of calls here in Fulton County. One of them is from a group of pastors who want to show up at the same time, not too far away from where I'm standing, to pray for Fani Willis. So that's something that they're putting out, essentially asking people to come out to what they're calling a call to conscience, a prayer vigil and rally to voice their support for Fulton County DA Fani Willis, her staff, and the grand jurors in the pursuit of justice. So really what we're seeing are a lot of people trying to make a principled stand, including the former president himself, and raise some money off of it, Hallie.
So we've talked about the former president who's planning to surrender, some of his co-defendants who have surrendered already. Here's somebody who may not, former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, right? And we are hearing from the DA and a judge about that tonight. Get us up to speed.
So another filing in Mark Meadows. We know that he is trying to get his charges removed from Fulton County Court to the federal court system. He put in another filing today asking a judge to either hurry up and make a decision on that or block the Fulton County DA from arresting him. So here's why he said that's necessary. His attorneys included this correspondence that came from the DA. This is a little bit of a letter, or an email rather, that she wrote saying, I'm not granting any extensions when it comes to turning himself in. I gave 2 weeks for people to surrender themselves to the court. Your client is no different than any other criminal defendant in this jurisdiction. The 2 weeks was a tremendous courtesy. Then Hallie, she goes on to say that she will issue warrants at 12:30 for anyone who hasn't turned themselves in.
Can you just ask you, Blaine, what happens? We've talked about the conditions of the bond, as we reported here on the show about 24 hours ago for Mr. Trump, $200,000. And there's things that he's got to do or not do, like he can't make intimidating threats. What happens if he violates that? What happens if he puts something on Truth Social that's interpreted as violating the conditions here?
You know, that's a hanging question, and that's something that some legal experts have weighed in on. One, you talk about the practicality of typically if somebody violates a bond agreement, you haul them into jail. That can't really happen with the former president when you talk about Secret Service protections, all sorts of other considerations. So then the question becomes, how egregious is the violation? Is it something that Fani Willis looks at? What other sorts of course of action do they have? But it is admittedly limited when you're talking about a former president and whether or not you can actually imprison him. Hallie.
Blaine Alexander, quite the 72 hours ahead of you and us. I'm sure we'll talk again quite a bit in the next few days. Appreciate it, Blaine. We are just about 24 hours out now from the first Republican primary debate of this campaign season, with 8 candidates locking in their spots, not counting the frontrunner, former President Trump, of course, who's choosing to skip the debate. He's still going to be in the spotlight tomorrow regardless. Remember, our newest poll from the First in the Nation caucus, Iowa, shows him 23 points, a monster stomp ahead of his next closest competitor, Ron DeSantis. Everybody else down there in single digits, I should say. To get on stage, you see who's going to be there, right? Who made the stage? All those 8 people you see right smack dab in the center, they had to get 40,000 individual donors, and they had to get at least a point in 3 polls or more. It means the people on the right side of your screen didn't qualify. They couldn't get there. NBC's Dasha Burns is joining us now live from Milwaukee, where the stage is literally being set. I've talked to a couple sources throughout the day today as far as preps for tomorrow. Some candidates doing a lot of prep. Some candidates are doing less prep. Talk us through the expectations and the role that Donald Trump will play, even not on stage.
Yeah, it's interesting. Vivek Ramaswamy, one of the candidates that's doing a lot of working out, a little partying tonight. He's having a bit of a soiree here. Some of the others locked themselves in study hall. But look, the former president really doing a great job of making it feel like he's here without really being here. He has forced a split screen for tomorrow night, pre-recording an interview with Tucker Carlson that'll create the counter-programming for Fox News to contend with. And he's turning himself in Atlanta the following day. So no matter what the headlines are, it's likely a lot of them are going to get drowned out less than 24 hours later. And we know that the hosts are going to be asking the candidates about the former president, and they're going to have to really figure out how to walk that fine line, creating a contrast without alienating that critical base, Hallie.
Dasha Burns, live for us in Milwaukee. Dasha, thank you so much. I know we will talk tomorrow. We'll also be here for special coverage right here on NBC News Now. Right after that debate, I'll be joined by Chuck Todd, Kristen Welker, and many others for that. Let's talk about lawyers for former crypto billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried. They say he's surviving on bread and water, sometimes a little peanut butter, because the Brooklyn jail, where he's been held for 11 days, is not accommodating his vegan diet. SBF pleading not guilty today to updated charges of wire fraud, along with some other things, in court in Manhattan. It was his first court appearance since a judge pulled his bail because of witness tampering. That's what sent this, again, crypto bajillionaire, formerly, to a jail in Brooklyn. That's where he's sitting now. A jail that is notorious for overcrowding. A jail that's been accused of inhumane conditions. Mackenzie Sigalos is joining us now. This is not the, Palo Alto house where SBF had been serving house arrest, right, with his parents at their home. If it wasn't for this witness tampering thing, he would likely still be there, right? I mean, talk us through what has happened and how this sort of industry giant has had such a fall from grace.
So, Hallie, Sam Bankman-Fried really was given multiple chances to stay at his parents' California home. He was repeatedly warned by a federal judge over a period of several months about his continued dealings with the press. But to your question, yes, these correctional facilities are meant to accommodate certain needs of their inmates. SBF's legal team is concerned not just about the lack of vegan meal options, but also his limited and dwindling supply of prescribed medications. Bankman-Fried's psychiatrist warned the court that without his meds, he would experience a return of his depression and other symptoms, which would severely and negatively impact his ability to assist in his own defense. In terms of next steps here, a judge today said that she'd be appealing directly to the Justice Department's Bureau of Prisons to figure out why he hasn't yet been given access to his meds. The judge also said that she was, quote, reasonably confident that the MDC facility at least offered vegetarian food. But as you said, Hallie, this facility has a problematic track record, including reports of unsanitary conditions, including rodent and roach infestations.
His trial, again, of course, jails are, I believe, supposed to accommodate restrictions on diets, et cetera. Is he going to be there until his trial starts October 3rd? What is the expectation for what that trial looks like if that timeline stays?
Right. The expectation is that he will stay. His lawyers filed an appeal to try to get him out, back into this house arrest situation or some sort of more restrictive bail conditions. But at this point, what they're trying to do is at least see that his, Sixth Amendment rights are met, that he's able to properly prepare for trial. His attorneys have been trying to come up with some sort of arrangement where he'd be able to, a couple days a week at least, go to some sort of facility where he'd have access to a laptop and, the internet so that he could, refer to different discovery documents, properly prepare his defense, because we're talking about a trial that's meant to start in 6 weeks from now. So there is a concern about whether or not he'd be able to adequately do that from MDC, which is where he is now.
Mackenzie Sigalos, thank you so much from CNBC for being with us. Interesting reporting there. Coming up, we'll take you live to Maui, where people demanding answers about recovery and accountability are coming face to face with their local leaders. We'll tell you what we're hearing in this meeting, plus an explosion leveling the home of a Tennessee Titans player, killing his father. We've got details on this story later in our 5 Things. Tonight in Hawaii, we are seeing people show up, not outside where the devastation has been almost too hard to bear, but instead inside this county council building, where they are coming to confront face-to-face some local leaders for the first time since that firestorm just incinerated part of Maui. You can see it live. They're saying they have to be included in the recovery.
Why did you run if you're not going to step up to the plate when we need you the most? Sticky fingers are here to take it all and develop everything without any input. Lahaina needs to decide what happens in Lahaina.
So many other questions, too, including what's going to be done with the relief money. Will locals be able to attend all the county council meetings about this? Is the local government going to protect, as you heard, the people of Lahaina? We now know at least 115 people have been confirmed dead in those wildfires. And there's an update tonight on the search, too. Officials say that all of the single-story buildings, so just one-story buildings, have been searched. They're now trying to push forward on those bigger properties, commercial properties as well. I want to bring in Steve Patterson. Fill us in more on where we are tonight.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, to that meeting, it really depends on the people inside to listen to the community. That's what this was about, an actual interfacing of grievances that have been airing now for 2 weeks. and beyond that. Having to do mostly with, of course, housing and the future of what happens on the ground, but also in the immediate. Will this government aid last long enough to keep people where they need to be in housing units, in small homes, in hotels? People are so worried about the immediate future, and that's led to a lot of this anger, specifically aimed at local, at county, at state, at federal leadership. So today's meeting was important that those grievances got out. It's not going to enact anything legislatively in the short term. It's not going to lead to anything that compels anybody to do anything, but I think it was important to the community that they got out in front of their leaders. So we spoke to some of those residents and people who were in town just about how they thought the meeting is going. Listen to this.
Community meetings need to start happening with the people. Community council members can go out there and do that. They need to be heard.
Stick your neck out for us because we're going to ask you to do it, so be prepared.
I also spoke to a fire battalion chief outside of the city council who was offering to give local leaders a ride along to the destruction just so we can show them what's happening here. So I think it's an important day as far as the process of healing, but also hoping that this leadership will listen to the people that are on the ground. Hallie?
There's still just this terrifying number, Steve, of about 850 people believed to be missing. And that is, I think, what just grips you in addition to the destruction that you've seen. Explain how they expect to, what happens next on that front, the search, the recovery.
850 people still missing 2 weeks after the fire, weeks after people have had internet and phone access and been able to be located at shelters or at people's homes. It tells you that the loss of life is going to be far more immense than the number that we're hearing now. And when we talk about the fact that 100% of part of this search is over, you're talking about single-family residences. So now we're moving on to multifamily and commercial residences. What is that? That's schools, that's malls, that's condos, that's apartment complexes, that's nursing homes. So this next phase is going to be even more heartbreaking than the first phase because we're starting to get into a whole different territory of loss. And it's grueling, it's slow. The DNA matching has to be exact. It has to ask from community help to submit that DNA in so they can identify the victims. But it's so difficult because of how hot that fire was. Burning remains into basically nothing was left. It is a tall task. It is a heartbreaking task, and it's not going to be done anytime soon. Hallie?
Steve Patterson, live for us there on Maui. Steve, thank you very much for your reporting. President Biden, in a new statement from the White House late today, is pledging support for people suffering and experiencing what he calls the devastating impacts of extreme weather worsened by climate change, not just in Maui, but coast to coast. Still, some advocates say he could be doing more to help by declaring a national emergency. We explain in tonight's breakdown. Record heat and pounding rain down south, mudslides out west, wildfires coast to coast. President Biden, in the face of these disasters, now facing new pressure to declare climate change a national emergency. It's something Democrats have been hoping for a while, even before Congress passed that sweeping climate law last year.
We are in an emergency, and it is a worldwide emergency.
It didn't happen then, but activists hope it will now.
President Biden, we need your help. Declare a climate emergency.
So what would that even do? Declaring an emergency can unlock special powers for a president in a crisis without needing approval from Congress, thanks to a law passed nearly 50 years ago. Since then, every president has declared at least one emergency during their time in office. Former President Trump, for example, signing one in the pandemic. Former President George W. Bush declaring one after 9/11. Now, 57% of voters support the naming of a new national emergency on climate if Congress doesn't do more, according to recent polling. If President Biden were to do that, it could mean new incentives, for example, to cut greenhouse gas emissions, speed up EV production, and build more renewable energy centers.
Are you prepared to declare a national emergency with respect to climate change?
We've already done that. We're moving. It is the existential threat to humanity.
So you've already declared that national emergency?
Practically speaking, yes.
Yeah.
But practically speaking is different from actually declaring it. And if he did, Republicans would probably sue, meaning the whole thing could land at the steps of the Supreme Court. A legal challenge and an environmental one. It's not just the potential legal hurdles here. You have the president already facing potential political pushback from some in his own party, like Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, who just last week is promising, in his words, an unrelenting fight against what he describes as the radical climate agenda of the Biden administration. More on this, obviously, as news warrants. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, officials say the father of Tennessee Titans quarterback Caleb Farley has died in a massive explosion at the NFL player's house in North Carolina early today. One other person was hurt. Look at this. The house was just leveled. Farley was not home when it happened. Investigators say they're still trying to figure out what caused this. Number 2, we told you 24 hours ago about that California shop owner killed over a pride flag hanging at her boutique. Now, police say the man who shot and killed Lori Carlton and had a history of social media posts critical of the LGBTQ+ community and of law enforcement. They're investigating now Carlton's death as a possible hate crime. Number 3, a black FedEx driver who says he was chased and shot out by 2 white men has been fired, according to his attorney. This is just a few days after a judge declared a mistrial in the case against the 2 men because of police errors. The lawyer for DeMontario Gibson says FedEx fired him because he did not accept a part-time non-courier job the company offered this summer. The FedEx spokesperson has confirmed Gibson is no longer employed, but didn't respond to other requests for comment by the AP. Number 4, Dick's Sporting Goods says theft has become such a problem that it's going to affect its profits, the amount of money that it makes. A 23% drop is what Dick's faced during the quarterly earnings report it released. The company is also blaming slow sales in its outdoor sales category. Number 5, Major League Baseball says the Tampa Bay Rays shortstop Wander Franco has been put on administrative leave until further notice. Remember, the league is looking into social media posts about an alleged relationship with a minor. He's also being investigated by officials in the Dominican Republic. When we come back, existing home sales slipping again last month. We'll tell you what this all means if you're trying to buy a house right now or if you're hoping to in the next year or so. Plus, a pretty wild arrest in Atlanta going viral. Look at this, a trooper, we're going to show it to you later, coming out of nowhere to stop a truck doing donuts. It's so good we have to wait for you to see it. That's later in the local. So it turns out Messi mania goes a whole lot further than Miami. We'll tell you where the soccer superstar is driving ticket sales up like 1,000%. I'm telling you, you can buy a car for what it costs to go see Messi in New York this weekend. We're getting into it in just a minute. But first, the housing market tonight, new numbers out, showing it is not looking so awesome necessarily if you're trying to buy a house. And economists say we may not get a lot of relief anytime soon. That's because last month, home sales hit their lowest pace for July in like 13 years. Experts say part of it is mortgage rates are higher. Also, there's not as much inventory out there. There's not as many homes out there available for you to buy. So prices are spiking, which means it's even harder to get into this housing market right now because homes are becoming more and more unaffordable. According to the National Association of Realtors, median price of a home, $400,000. Diana Olick is joining us now. That is a lot of money. Explain what this means if somebody's thinking, okay, maybe I missed my chance in 2020, 2021 when interest rates were low, mortgage rates were low. You know, I want to maybe buy a house in the next year or so. Is it just bad news bears for them?
You missed your chance big time.
Oh,
I can't say that enough. Look, I'm sorry to say it, but we just got the report from the realtors. Home sales down 2% month to month, down nearly 17% year over year. Why? There is nothing for sale. Believe it or not, the supply of homes on the market right now is the lowest in a quarter of a century.
Wow. And that's generational.
Yeah, really. Generational. Yeah. And it's half the number of homes that were for sale pre-pandemic. So that's what happened during the pandemic. And mortgage rates, 7.5%.
So why? Are people just clinging to the homes that they have because they don't want to buy another one right now?
Golden handcuffs. That's what we're calling it. If you have a 3% rate, which a lot of us do, and mine is a little bit lower, why would you trade that for 7.5% on the same amount of money? Why would you pay that interest rate just to move to another house? Maybe renovate your house you're in.
Well, it's also, there's this interesting new sort of picture that we're getting late tonight from some of these new earnings from Toll Brothers, right? Showing, as you so aptly described it in the commercial break, the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, exactly. So there's very little supply on the low end of the market. That's why sales are way down on the lower end. There's nothing to buy, and prices are going very high on the low end because there's so much demand. But the luxury guys, Toll Brothers just reported a 77% increase in new contracts year over year in the last quarter. That's 77% more homes they sold. even when their price point is over $1 million, $1.06 million. And that just shows you that these higher mortgage rates are not hitting the higher end buyer as much as they are the entry-level buyer.
So what that's saying to us then is that more people are paying money to buy brand new homes that haven't been built yet, right? They're like basically saying, here's my $1 million, go build me a house.
Right, and all the builders are benefiting from the lack of supply on the existing side, but Toll seems to be benefiting more than most because they're not being hit quite as hard by that mortgage rate impact.
It's fascinating. Diana Olick, thank you so much for breaking it down, helping us understand the reality check, if you will. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, a back-to-school nightmare in Ohio, what police are saying about how this horrific bus crash happened. Plus, our Kristen Dahlgren traveling to Scotland to follow one woman's incredible recovery, how she's breaking the cycle of breast cancer on a bike. That's our backstory tonight. Of stories every day. And because it's tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Midwest Bureau, officials say at least one student has died. Nearly 24 others have been hurt after this awful school bus crash in Ohio. It was the first day of school there. Officials say a minivan crossed the center line of the street and slammed into the bus. The crash is still under investigation. Out of our Southern Bureau, police in Atlanta say somebody's been arrested after a pickup truck was seen doing burnouts and donuts, like right in the middle of this busy intersection. Look at it. You can see it. I mean, it's hard to watch. A trooper immediately then chases the car, stops it. Oof. Takes the suspect out. Officials say at least one person's been hurt. Also out of our Southern Bureau, something incredible has happened at a Tennessee zoo. A baby giraffe was born without any spots. Look at that little baby. No spots there. Zoo officials think she is the only giraffe like her in the world. They need help naming her. She looks like a little baby deer with a long neck. What should her name be? You can decide. Time now to get the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And tonight we're talking about the story of Lisa Sensitz, a double mastectomy survivor who found strength in the world of cycling. Lisa is a self-described non-athlete, that's how she's phrased it, who decided to climb on a bike after her surgeries, incredibly going on to win a national championship in her age group. NBC's Kristen Dahlgren, herself a breast cancer and mastectomy survivor, formed a friendship with Lisa and followed her as she took on her very first international race. Check it out.
Lisa Sensitz is a busy Long Island mom, working, chasing two young boys.
You want down?
Until a few years ago, the 39-year-old didn't even know how to shift gears on a bicycle. So it's quite a story that got her here, to the windswept Scottish countryside, about to take on the world's best cyclists.
I would have never put my name with the word athlete in any sentence whatsoever growing up.
But for Lisa, cycling became a lifeline, joining her husband Andrew for rides when she was feeling down after the birth of her sons.
So I probably started cycling around 2017 with my husband. Just for fun. Just for fun.
She liked it and even entered some small local races until a longtime fear of Lisa's played out.
Every woman in my immediate line has been affected by breast cancer. So
she had no known genetic variant, but started finding masses in her own breasts.
You wake up every morning with this lump in your throat, as if I'm gonna get bad news today. And it just breaks you.
She opted for a preventative double mastectomy, but it left her in extreme pain.
Couldn't raise my arms fully above my head. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't embrace my babies. I couldn't do anything without pain.
Her search for answers led her to Dr. Jonathan Bank, a specialist in post-mastectomy pain syndrome, who was finally able to relieve her agony. Eventually, she got back on her bike.
I said to my coach, I just want to see how strong I can get.
Just how strong is something nobody could have predicted. A test of how her body functions during exercise showed the self-described non-athlete had the capacity of a pro.
Lisa Sensitz of Montauk, New York, 57.
She started winning, and winning, quickly becoming national champion for 35 to 39-year-olds. Dr. Bank, so moved by her story, he started filming a documentary about her recovery.
I was just a woman who got on her bike and happened to be strong.
She just continues to humble me, and I'm just in constant awe of her achievements that are way beyond physical on a bike.
When I was going through similar pain after my mastectomy, Dr. Bank introduced me to Lisa. She became my friend and cheerleader. So like Dr. Bank, I couldn't wait to see her first international race.
Wow, how'd I get here?
Incredible, considering she has raced in less than 10 time trial races ever.
There you go.
This is no big budget operation. We all pitch in to help get her ready. My husband carrying her bike and giving her tips since her own coach isn't here.
It does not get any bigger than this. These are the best of the best from around the world.
These are census of the United States.
Go, 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 go!
Over 35 minutes, the racers push themselves to the limit. Lisa fueled by how far she's come.
No, Lisa! Woo! What were you thinking about out there?
Oh, over and over. Lisa, just go. Lisa, just go. That's all I kept saying. So it made me cry.
Both of us moved to tears, knowing the true prize.
I really hope that other people who are going through this can feel this amount of pride just to bounce back and know that you can come out the other side better than you ever thought you could before.
A journey she could have never imagined, but one she is determined to embrace with everything she has.
Kristen Dahlgren is joining us now. Somebody's cutting onions in this studio as well. I will just tell you that much.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
No, of course not. Just incredible to watch. And real talk here, right? Because as journalists, so often, you would never cheer for the subject of a story that you're doing. But in this instance, it was just so different for you and for her. And I wonder if you can tell us more about what that was like.
Right. I mean, this one just had so much meaning for me. And that was actually the first time that I had met Lisa in person, was on that trip. But we had just connected, and I met her really at a low point for me. It was 3 years after my mastectomy, and I still had all of this pain and discomfort and was just so uncomfortable all the time and so discouraged. And so I was talking to Dr. Bank about, possible solutions, and he said, you really have to meet this woman. And she just was so generous with her time and talking through what she was going through. And then, I saw this incredible story in her. I said, I have to share this with people because, like she said right there, she hopes other people see this and realize that they can come out the other side of whatever they're dealing with better than ever. And I just find her so inspirational, and I'm so, blessed to have gotten to spend that time with her and watch her race there.
What was it like seeing her for the first time in person after all those conversations?
Yeah, you talk about really intimate things with someone. And I think, look, this is a club that nobody wants to belong to, this breast cancer survivor club. And yet the generosity of people that are willing to spend, hours on the phone with you, talking to you about some really intimate things is just, it continues to blow my mind away. So I was so happy to see her there and see her thriving. And, her just positivity is infectious, and she realizes, she says she hit rock bottom and she was able to come back. And I think there's a lesson for all of us in that you can just push yourself past what you think you can do.
Kristen Dahlgren, thank you so much for bringing us the story. I really, really appreciate you and her. Still to come here on the show. It seems like something maybe is up with Scooter Braun because a whole bunch of big celebrities, Demi Lovato, Ariana Grande, etc., are reportedly breaking up with him as their manager. What's rumor, what's real, and what it means for the industry writ large, coming up. A lot of questions tonight about one of the biggest managers in the music industry, superstar Scooter Braun. I bet you've heard of him. He's known as the rep and kind of the driving force behind some of the business's biggest names. Think Justin Bieber, David Guetta, the Black Eyed Peas. The list goes on. But now, some new reports tonight that some big-name clients are dropping him, one after the other. Idina Menzel, for example, Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato. So what's up with this? Nobody knows for sure, although Braun himself went on X, the site formerly known as Twitter, to say this: breaking news, I'm no longer managing myself. A source close to the situation tells NBC he's taken a step back from managing to focus on his new role as CEO of an entertainment company called Hybe America. Keep in mind the backdrop here. It's coming at a time when the streaming business is changing a whole lot about the music industry. Under Braun's management, Ariana Grande, for example, sold 2 million records back in 2014. Her latest album sold about 1 million fewer in 2020. Lovato, 74,000 albums in 2021, only 33,000 a year later. NBC News has reached out to the stars who supposedly dropped Braun for comment. Nothing yet. Jem Oswald, executive music editor at Variety, is joining us now. And Jem, in your latest piece for Variety, you write that a music industry source with knowledge of this is denying a lot of these stories in a statement saying, and I'm quoting here, all of Scooter Braun's clients are under contract and negotiations have been going on for several months as Scooter steps into his larger role as the CEO of that company, saying people are spreading rumors based on what they know, but they are off, et cetera, saying that SB Projects is still handling Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, as they work through this. But I just go back to the headline of that piece, which is, what the hell is going on with Scooter Braun's empire? What is this? Because it is huge news in the arena that you cover.
Yes, it is, but I will say that this is not expected, okay? As soon as he became the CEO of Hybe, which, just for a little background, Hybe is a enormous South Korean company that was behind the rise of BTS. And they acquired the parent company that owns Scooter Braun's management company in 2021 for $1.05 billion. And part of the deal was that Scooter would become CEO of that company. He has been very focused on that. He led one of his biggest deals so far in that role has been buying the hip hop company Quality Control for $320 million. And Quality Control, I would argue that's a bargain, because Quality Control is a home of Migos, Lil Baby, Lil Yachty, City Girls, lots of big rappers. So it's a very smart acquisition. And when you're the CEO of an $11 billion company, you can't really give the kind of day-to-day TLC that his artists are probably used to. So it's not a surprise that he would be stepping back from that role, delegating it to people who work for him, who then effectively become the managers. So a lot of people have been saying to me that this has been the situation actually for years, or the last few years. He's just been gradually pulling back, and that's not a surprise. It happens fairly often.
Jem Oswald, thank you for that super crystal clear explanation. Really appreciate you bringing us your latest reporting and the latest scoop on that one. Thanks. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air with the first tropical system of the Atlantic hurricane season blasting Texas right now. Thousands without power, as another system dumping rain out west has folks literally stuck in the mud. We're going to take you there live with a look at the next storm brewing as we speak, plus a forecast of its path. Also tonight, the incredibly dramatic videos out of Pakistan. A cable car barely hanging on over a windy valley 1,000 feet high. Rescuers climbing down from helicopters to save everybody inside. We'll show you more on how this unfolded and the questions about accountability tonight. Plus, former President Trump's co-defendants, some of them turning themselves in late today, including somebody who is still clinging to the lie the 2020 election was stolen. It was not. Why Mr. Trump seems to want money and not necessarily crowds ahead of his own surrender just a couple days from now. Then lawyers for disgraced FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried say he's not getting the vegan diet he wants in jail, surviving instead on bread, water, and a little bit of peanut butter. What we know about his condition ahead of his trial. And with President Biden in Hawaii tonight after those deadly wildfires, some are now putting more pressure on him to declare climate change a national emergency. What would that actually do? We've got a look at the breakdown later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we are starting tonight with a triple threat as multiple tropical systems barrel their way across the U.S., starting right now in Texas, where Tropical Depression Harold is pounding the southern Gulf Coast in the first U.S. landfall of this year's Atlantic hurricane season. 30,000 people without power there. And even though there's a risk for flooding, the rain is also kind of a relief for some, because you have about, look at this, a third of the country under some kind of a heat alert. Pull back, that's the picture there. There's also Hillary, what's left of that storm, with people digging out from the mud that trapped cars and humans after the flooding out west. We're talking mud so thick, you can't even move in it. You have to have bulldozers getting into it. And look at this. You can see some of those dozers carrying out some of the older folks who were stranded at their assisted living facility. One hospital in L.A. overnight losing power when backup generators went out, leaving 200 patients in the dark. People in critical condition had to be evacuated. Then you've got on deck this one here, Tropical Storm Franklin set to barrel through the Dominican Republic and Haiti in the next 24 hours. We've got meteorologist Bill Karen standing by for more on these storms and the latest forecast. But I want to get to Jake Ward in Cathedral City, California. And Jake, we see it behind you, right? You need this heavy machinery to quite literally dig out as this recovery after Storm Hillary continues. The mud in some spots, I heard it was up to like 5 feet. I mean, that's shoulder length on me.
That's absolutely right, Hallie. I mean, it is a overwhelming problem. And it's the kind of thing that those of us who have not had practical experience of flooding probably don't consider, right? Even though we had seasonal, monthly, and daily records broken, not to mention hourly records, when almost an entire inch of rain fell in just a single hour in Palm Springs. The problem now is mud. The rain goes away and the water drains away, but the mud stays until you remove it. And that's why you have this whole neighborhood suddenly working together. Neighbors have come out all across this part of Cathedral City. It's really been a lovely thing to watch, the camaraderie of this place, people coming out with shovels. But shovels can only do so much. This vehicle, the white one behind me, has been stuck here since Monday at least, was up past its axles. It's just starting to be freed as the neighbor here prepares to pull it free. But there's a lot of work to do. It requires these heavy bulldozers, the same kind that you mentioned, that transported elderly patients out of that facility. And, right now with the sun on us and everyone working together, there's a very happy feeling here. But yesterday, on Monday, that was not the feeling. Here's how one employee rescued on that bulldozer described the feeling she had.
You will fall down if you don't hold on something. But if it lasts for 30 minutes, we will drown there inside. We will die. That was only 15 minutes, I thought.
So at this hour, Hallie, fantastic work being done in neighborhoods like this to clear the mud, get it free. But, we've been speaking to people who've been living here 40 years or more. They say they've never experienced anything like this. And the question, of course, becomes, are we going to see this again in their lifetime? That's the concern, Hallie.
For sure. And I'm looking at people behind you. Are people able to mostly get back to their homes at this point? I know that, it's not you sure can't walk across that street, Jake, because that's not a good situation for you either. I imagine that's obviously the case for others.
That's right. All of this block is essentially covered off. There's a gentleman you can see just in the far distance struggling along in the mud. His experience is pretty typical. It is almost impossible to move through this kind of mud. And you have people trying at the last moment to try to get in, rescue cats and dogs, grab their checkbooks, whatever else they can. But at this point, all of the rest of this is inaccessible. And mud is a problem that I think for all of us who've been watching the effects of climate change, watching the storm and then the mud suddenly creates this new specter and this new sense that we're going to need this kind of machinery in order to be ready for it in the future.
And it's like, Jake, unlike snow, right, on the East Coast, mud doesn't melt. It can be beautiful, sunny where you are. That doesn't make it easier to handle that. Jake Ward, live for us in Cathedral City. Jake, thank you. I want to bring in meteorologist Bill Cairns, who is live for us with the forecast of the next tropical storm that we're keeping an eye on, as well as tropical, now depression herald, right, Bill? It's no longer a tropical storm.
Yeah, the winds don't classify it as a tropical storm anymore, so it's dying off as we would expect it to do. It made landfall earlier today. Now it's crossed over into Mexico, actually. There's only some rain left between Laredo and Del Rio. Most of the rain has ended around Corpus Christi. We still do have a couple areas of thunderstorms that are going to rotate here. Here's San Antonio. Here's a little quick squall that's going to go through. That'll be about the worst of it. Power outages continue to come down. At the peak, we were right around 35,000. Now we're about 25,000, so that's good. We like to get people their power on before the sun gets back up tomorrow morning when the heat starts kicking back in. So there's the path of what's going to happen with it. It'll die off later tonight. So this is that time of year where you go right to the next storm. Typically, middle of October is about when we start to drop off. Middle of August is when it really ramps up. So we're just past that. So it's going to be a long 2 months. This is Franklin to the south. We have tropical storm warnings for the Dominican Republic and Haiti. It's not that well organized. It's not a big, powerful storm, at least not yet. And it's going to drift over the Dominican Republic over the next next 24 hours. That means a lot of heavy rain, life-threatening flash flooding is possible. A slow-moving tropical storm can dump just as much rain as a strong hurricane, and so that's going to be the story tomorrow. We'll see how bad that gets. Then the storm does a little loop-de-loop south of Bermuda. Notice the Hurricane Center has it getting stronger at this point. The water is very warm off the east coast of the United States and off the Bahamas here, and so I think it's going to possibly become even stronger than a Category 1 next week. Our European computer model brings it northwards, but safely off the east coast, somewhere close to Bermuda or possibly a little bit to the inside of Bermuda. This would mean large waves, rip currents for all of the east coast. Great for surfers, bad for anyone that wants to swim next week and go on vacation at any of the east coast beaches. So we'll see how that plays out, Hallie. That's still 7 days from now. A lot can change, and that's close enough to the east coast and a powerful enough storm that, we're not going to count this one out until it's safely heading out to sea.
One to watch for sure. Bill Cairns, thank you. Taking to Pakistan now, where tonight a group of 7 students and a teacher are thankfully, luckily, back on the ground and safe. But there are a ton of questions over how they ended up in this situation in the first place, trapped. Look at this, in a cable car 900 feet above a ravine, dangling there in the mountains, literally left hanging by a single cable. The second one snapped while this group was on their way to school. It took rescuers something like 15 hours to save everybody. It was such a delicate thing here. You had the people trapped inside being pulled up into a helicopter. But here's the problem with that. Look, you can see all those people watching, obviously. Problem with it is when the chopper got too close, the rotor wash, right? It would shake the cable car. So that weakened the only cable that everybody was suspended by, not to mention totally freaked out the people inside. They ended up trying something else. Look at this. One rescuer hanging from a cable, pulling another toward him. It was like an old-fashioned pulley system. That is the moment that one of the kids eventually made it safely to the ground, embraced by rescuers, the locals, everybody who had gotten together to try to help. And if you're like, well, wait a second, what's up with this cable car in the first place? This is how people in that region get around for many things, like for going to school. That's why these students were in this cable car. There's a lot of mountains there. The roads aren't always well maintained. Of course, the issue comes up when something like this happens. A cable snaps. It can have unbelievably, Raf Sanchez, life-threatening consequences. And unbelievably tonight, we are talking about good news, thankfully, because the first couple tries to get people out did not work. And then the people inside were like totally panicking, understandably.
Completely understandably. Hallie, one of them actually called into a local TV station pleading with the government to come rescue them. This has been such a heart-stopping story all day, but never more so than that point where the Pakistani military helicopters are overhead. And as you say, they're trying to lower these commandos down to this cable car, which is literally hanging by a thread. They managed to get one of those commandos over it, but the cable car begins rocking and shaking from the wash, from the turbulence of those helicopter rotor blades. They do ultimately manage to get one of the students out by helicopter, but as night falls, as the darkness sets in, they can't fly the choppers anymore in this mountainous area. It looked for a little while, Hallie, like they were going to end up forced, no choice, but to leave these kids hanging there overnight. But local rescuers, people in the nearby villages said, no way, we are not going to put the parents through that. And as you said, they came up with this kind of low-tech solution, hand by patient hand with this pulley system. This big group of people standing on one side of that mile-wide, 1,000-foot deep ravine were able to pull the remaining kids and the teacher to safety. The Prime Minister of Pakistan announcing earlier tonight, all the kids are safe, praising the military, praising the rescuers. So a happy ending, but it really, really looked for a little while like it might not be. Hallie?
Well, just so precarious as that car was dangling so high up. And as we said, it's not uncommon to use cable cars in this area.
Yeah. Remote part of Pakistan, a lot of mountains, difficult to make roads, not a lot of money for infrastructure. And so these cable cars are how people get around. And Hallie, cable cars gives a sense of sturdiness that you can't always apply with these. Some of them are basically elevators. They are boxes with gates. They are run often by individuals or by private companies, not necessarily by the government. And there are real questions about how safely they are regulated. These questions existed before because there's a long track track record of accidents with these cable cars. In 2017, 10 people were killed in a single accident. But as you can imagine, those questions multiplied tonight. But for the moment, those kids back with their families, a lot of relief in Pakistan, a lot of relief around the world. Hallie.
Yeah, the world was certainly watching this one. Raf Sanchez, thank you so much. A lot of action tonight back here at home at a Fulton County jail with former President Trump's co-defendants, some of them showing up all throughout the day to turn themselves in on charges they illegally tried to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 election there. One of those people, John Eastman, you see him, the so-called architect of that fake elector scheme. This is him minutes after showing up for his arrest. He was in, candidly, he was in total denial to our Ali Vitale about Mr. Trump's defeat in Georgia and the election overall.
Do you still think the election was stolen?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Still.
No question. No question in my mind.
It's obviously not true. Eastman and others have provided no evidence of fraud or that this election was, quote unquote, stolen. Again, there have been multiple recounts in that state, investigations. Officials have said there is no evidence of widespread fraud. We know the former president is going to take his own turn at surrender on Thursday. In Atlanta, that's what he's announcing. His fourth arrest, it'll be in 5 months. He's out on $200,000 bond with a lot of rules about what he can and cannot say on social media. But there are no guarantees that if he breaks those rules, he's actually going to end up behind bars. Blaine Alexander is live for us in Atlanta. Lots of moving pieces here, Blaine. And I think the interesting thing, and candidly, perhaps the difficult thing about this story is that there are a lot of co-defendants. Some of these developments can seem incremental, but added up together, they are significant, right? This makes a difference in this key case against former President Trump, one of 4 indictments he's facing. He is going to surrender on Thursday, we now know, and it's going to look a little bit different than when John Eastman showed up, right?
Absolutely, Hallie. So John Eastman kind of gave us a good primer of what to possibly expect. He was in there for about 90 minutes today from getting in to getting out. Mind you, that's a lot faster than you typically see when you're booked into Fulton County. That can last anywhere from 12 hours when you talk about the entire process. So certainly expedited. We expect the former president to be in and out even quicker than that. Now, the question is what happens when he's inside? Are there pushes to keep him from getting a mugshot, for instance? What does that look like? So all of those things we're going to wonder about. But of course, this is an unprecedented event. What does it look like when a former president walks into a jail?
What about So what does it look like when a former president walks into a jail? What does it look like when a former president breaks the conditions or violates the condition of his bond in the first place, right? Like, in other words, let's say he posts something that he shouldn't online, puts it on Truth Social, says it in an interview. I know that you and our team have been talking to legal experts who say, okay, unlike perhaps other defendants, not so easy to throw somebody who is running for president, who used to be president, behind bars.
So, Hallie, if you or I were out on bond, for instance, and violated the terms of that agreement, it's very likely that we would get hauled right back into jail because we didn't do what we said we were going to do to be released. However, if you're the former president, that means in order to take him into custody, that would mean Secret Service protection. That would mean an incredible amount of security that is just not feasible at all. So it's very unlikely that he would be remanded. There are a couple of other things that could be done. A judge could order a hearing, according to some legal experts at NBC News spoke with. A judge could order a hearing. He may have to appear. His legal counsel would have to appear. And if the judge were to decide that he did violate the terms of that agreement, he could be held in civil contempt. He could be fined daily, for instance, until he takes the post down or deletes them. There are a number of different things that could be done. And then ultimately, the DA would have to decide whether or not it's even worth it, if it's an egregious enough violation to actually warrant going after something like that, Hallie.
Brian Schwartz, our friend over at CNBC, in just the last hour or so, has some reporting that suggests that Mr. Trump has not helped pay for the legal bills of his co-defendants here. Why does that matter? Like, beyond just the idea of, you know, let me let you talk it through it. Why is that significant potentially?
So, one, you talked about the wide number of co-defendants that are here. You need a spreadsheet to keep up with the number of people who are charged alongside Trump, which, by the way, we do have a spreadsheet. But when you talk about all of these people and their mounting legal fees, you're talking about legal fees ranging into the 7 digits. So people are going to really come out of pocket to defend themselves against charges, which they allegedly have because they were acting on behalf of the president or trying to help him. So legally, this could put him in more peril if you have people who are frustrated, who are upset with the former president. They don't have a lot of incentive to be loyal to him. So if it comes to taking deals or anything like that, you may see people who are more likely to do something along those lines, Hallie.
Blaine Alexander, and your spreadsheets. Thank you, Blaine. Appreciate it. So listen, we are just 24 hours out from the first Republican primary debate of the 2024 season, with 8 candidates locking down their spots, not counting the front runner, of course, Mr. Trump, who's skipping out on this debate. He's still going to be in the spotlight, even if he's not on stage tomorrow. Remember, our first in the nation caucus Iowa poll out this week showed Mr. Trump 23 points ahead of his nearest challenger, right? He is, I mean, candidly, that's a stomp on Ron DeSantis there and the rest of the field. Now, the 8 candidates on stage had to meet some criteria to be able to be on stage. So you see it on the left, Donald Trump, he's not going to be there, fine. Middle 8 people. They all had to get 40,000 donors. They had to score a certain number of points in a certain number of polls to be there. The 4 people you see on the right side of your screen, they didn't qualify. And they're none too thrilled about it. I want to bring in NBC's Dasha Burns, who's joining us now from Milwaukee, where the stage was set. We'll get to her in just a moment. But first, we want to get to another story that we're following tonight. Lawyers for former crypto billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried. They say he's surviving on bread and water, sometimes a little peanut butter, because the Brooklyn jail, where he's been held for 11 days, is not accommodating his vegan diet. SBF's pleading not guilty today to updated charges of wire fraud, along with other charges, in court in Manhattan. This is his first court appearance since a judge revoked his bail because of witness tampering. That's what sent this, again, crypto billionaire, basically, crypto millionaire, to a jail in Brooklyn. That's where he's now, a jail that's notorious for overcrowding, a jail that's been accused of inhumane conditions. Mackenzie Sigalos is joining us now. The very different situation than SBF being on house arrest in Palo Alto at his parents' place, right? I mean, this is night and day, and it is because of these allegations of witness tampering here.
Yeah, and if Sam Bankman-Fried had listened to repeated warnings to stop talking to the press about key witnesses in this case, then he would very likely still be sitting easy in Palo Alto at his parents' place. But as it stands now, we're looking at a man who went from being regarded as the king of crypto with a peak net worth of $26 billion to sitting in a Brooklyn jail while he awaits a criminal trial that could put him behind bars for decades. Now, prosecutors are accusing him of defrauding customers out of billions of dollars. A new superseding indictment released in the last few days charges Bankman-Fried with 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy, among other charges related to the implosion of his crypto empire. Now, while he's no longer being charged with conspiring to violate U.S. campaign finance laws, SDNY is still alleging that Bankman-Fried stole $100 million of customer funds and then donated it to U.S. political campaigns as part of a larger fraud scheme. Now, Bankman-Fried pled not guilty to all those charges just a few hours ago, though, Hallie.
The timeline, he goes on trial soon. I mean, beginning of October, that's 6 weeks from now, Mackenzie, right? Like, does any of this change up the timeline? Is he going to be in that jail until his trial starts?
Yeah, the expectation is that SBF will indeed remain in custody until his criminal trial kicks off in 6 weeks from now. SBF's lawyers said in court today that there are serious Sixth Amendment issues involving their client not being able to prepare and participate in his defense before then. He hasn't had access to a computer or other discovery documents since being remanded into custody a week and a half ago. There are also concerns over his inability to access prescribed meds or, you know, access to vegan meals, which is what they say is a necessary part of his diet.
Mackenzie, thank you so much for that reporting. Appreciate it. Let's get you back to that story on the first Republican debate with Dasha Burns for us in Milwaukee. I've talked to a couple sources throughout the day today as far as preps for tomorrow. Some candidates doing a lot of prep. Some candidates are doing less prep. Talk us through the expectations and the role that Donald Trump will play, even not on stage.
Yeah, it's interesting. Vivek Ramaswamy, one of the candidates that's doing a lot of working out, a little partying tonight. He's having a bit of a soiree here. Some of the others locked themselves in study hall. But look, the former president really doing a great job of making it feel like he's here without really being here. He has forced a split screen for tomorrow night, pre-recording an interview with Tucker Carlson that'll create the counter-programming for Fox News to contend with. And he's turning himself in Atlanta the following day. So no matter what the headlines are, it's likely a lot of them are going to get drowned out less than 24 hours later. And we know that the hosts are going to be asking the candidates about the former president, and they're going to have to really figure out how to walk that fine line, creating a contrast without alienating that critical base, Hallie.
Dasha Burns, live for us in Milwaukee. Dasha, thank you so much. I know we will talk tomorrow. We'll also be here for special coverage right here on NBC News Now. Right after that debate, I'll be joined by Chuck Todd, Kristen Welker, and many others for that. Coming up here on this show tonight, a new warning out from the CDC, how the agency says 1 in 5 women are mistreated getting maternity care. Plus, what we're learning now about whether that massive UPS strike will actually happen. That's coming up in the 5 Things. A new lawsuit tonight against the Toronto Raptors from another team. Why the New York Knicks say they're stealing secrets. That's in our 5 Things. But first, tonight in Hawaii, people are showing up near where the devastation has been just horrific. And tonight, at a city council meeting, looking to confront local leaders face to face for the first time since that firestorm engulfed part of the island. You can see it live there. They want to be included in the recovery. Listen.
Why did you run if you're not going to step up to the plate when we need you the most? Sticky fingers are here to take it all and develop everything without any input. Lahaina needs to decide what happens in Lahaina.
Here are some of the concerns there. People want a stake in their future. They want to know what's going to be done with the relief money. Will locals be able to have input? Is the local government going to protect people in Lahaina? We know now at least 115 people have been confirmed dead in those fires. As for the search, officials say that these single-story buildings, those have been searched. Now they're pushing forward into the larger properties, the commercial properties. I want to bring in Steve Patterson, who is live for us on Maui. And Steve, here we are days after those wildfires, barely scratching the surface of what comes next for people there. I mean, the road to recovery is beyond a marathon here.
It's a minefield that will be in place in some estimates for 10 years before they're able to rebuild that town. A lot of people, though, in the immediate future are just worried about basic needs. I mean, imagine being one of these people. You may have lost a family member, you lose your home, you lose the town that your home housed, you lose your job that was tied to the town. You lose the ability to do your job because maybe tourism isn't coming back the way it would be. So then what do you do? And I think that's the fear, and that's the reason why this public meeting was so important. It's the first time that people got to actually interface with their community leaders to ask questions that have been on their minds for 2 weeks. In a lot of cases, we know, of course, that a lot of people were upset to the immediate response, both at the local and the state and the federal level, but also just people want to know that their leaders are there and listening. Especially with all of these fears about housing. One of the most striking things I heard is that there's a big fear of a land grab, right? What if Maui turns into Malibu? What if Lahaina turns into Waikiki? So I think, just hearing the ability for leaders to say that's not going to happen is great. Now it's up to the press and it's up to the people on the ground and the people that they elected to follow through. But this is a big step. I want to take you to the meeting. Here's a little bit more of what people's concerns were. Listen to this.
Community meetings need to start happening with the people. Community council members can go out there and do that. They need to be heard.
Stick your neck out for us because we're going to ask you to do it, so be prepared.
This meeting's not binding. It has no legislative power. It's not going to compel anybody to do anything. But again, it's part of a step of healing that I think leaders need to engage with. Hallie?
Can I ask you, Steve, because as we're having this conversation, one of the things I'm thinking about, just having been on the ground for other just terrible disasters, at some point there sometimes comes a time when people are like, enough. Get out of my, I'm done with the media. I'm done with the people, I'm done with this. I want to deal with my grief and trauma and this recovery on my terms. And I wonder, given the scope and the scale of this disaster, what the sensibility is like on the ground there, and just how the folks you're talking to are doing here.
Here's how deep this tragedy is that we're not there yet. I know what point you're talking about, Hallie, because we've both been there in stories that are tragic and horrific. We're not there yet. They are still clearing people out of buildings. They're now entering the second phase where they're going into more complexes, apartment complexes, and nursing homes and multi-story families. This is going to take so long that people still want attention on what's happening on the ground.
Yeah.
It will get to that phase, there's no doubt. But this has a long lifespan, and it's horrific. Hallie?
Steve Patterson, live for us on Maui. Steve, thank you for being there and for bringing us the reporting that is so important to be doing. President Biden, in a statement from the White House late tonight, is pledging support for people not just in Maui, but everywhere in this country, dealing with what he calls the devastating impacts of extreme weather worsened by climate change. But some advocates say he could be doing more to help by declaring a national climate emergency. We explain in tonight's breakdown. Record heat and pounding rain down south, mudslides out west, wildfires coast to coast. President Biden, in the face of these disasters, now facing new pressure to declare climate change a national emergency. It's something Democrats have been hoping for a while, even before Congress passed that sweeping climate law last year.
We are in an emergency, and it is a worldwide emergency.
It didn't happen then, but activists hope it will now.
President Biden, we need your help. Declare a climate emergency.
So what would that even do? Declaring an emergency can unlock special powers for a president in a crisis without needing approval from Congress, thanks to a law passed nearly 50 years ago. Since then, every president has declared at least one emergency during their time in office. Former President Trump, for example, signing one in the pandemic. Former President George W. Bush declaring one after 9/11. Now, 57% of voters support the naming of a new national emergency on climate if Congress doesn't do more, according to recent polling. If President Biden were to do that, it could mean new incentives, for example, to cut greenhouse gas emissions, speed up EV production, and build more renewable energy centers.
Are you prepared to declare a national emergency with respect to climate change?
We've already done that. We're moving. It is the existential threat to humanity.
So you've already declared that national emergency?
Practically speaking, yes.
Yeah.
But practically speaking is different from actually declaring it. And if he did, Republicans would probably sue, meaning the whole thing could land at the steps of the Supreme Court. A legal challenge and an environmental one. It's not just the legal potential hurdles here. You already have the president facing the beginnings of political pushback from at least one member of his own party, Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat, of course. Moderate Democrat who just recently is promising to launch, in his words, a fight against what he describes as the Biden administration's radical climate agenda. We'll be watching that one. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, officials say the father of a Tennessee Titans player has died in a massive explosion. This is at Caleb Farley's home in North Carolina today. One other person was hurt. You can see the home was just leveled. Farley wasn't home when it happened. Investigators are still trying to figure out what caused this explosion. Number 2, 1 in 5 women in this country say they've been mistreated while getting maternity care, according to a new CDC report. 1 in 10 women said providers ignored them or refused to help, while 1 in 15 said medical professionals shouted at them or discriminated at them based on their age or their weight. For Black women, some 12% said they face racial discrimination. Number 3, we told you about that California shop owner yesterday who was killed over a pride flag hanging at her store. Well, now police say the man who shot and killed Lori Carlton had a history of social media posts critical of the LGBTQ+ community and of law enforcement, and that they're investigating the killing as a possible hate crime. Number 5, UPS workers late today are approving a new 5-year contract, which officially ends the threat of a strike. The Teamsters negotiated the deal, which includes things like more money and more protections for people working in the heat. They're going to put in air conditioners in trucks, for example, for the first time. Number 5, the New York Knicks are suing the Toronto Raptors, accusing the team's new coaching staff of stealing scouting reports and some other confidential stuff. They say the team hired a mole, a former Knicks employee who is also named in the suit. They're accusing that former video analytics and player development assistant of forwarding thousands of files to the Raptors. Raptors reps did not immediately respond to NBC News' request for comment. Coming up here on the show, a lot more to get to, including a big security alert for some Americans overseas. Why the State Department is warning people in Belarus to get out now. Plus, new signs tonight that now may not be the best time to buy a house. Hate to break it to you. We'll tell you how long experts think that could last next. So the housing market tonight, not looking so awesome for people who want to buy a house, and economists say there may not be much relief in sight soon. That's because last month we're seeing some new numbers showing sales of homes slowed to the lowest pace it's been for a July in 13 years. Why? Well, mortgage rates are higher and there are fewer homes available to actually go out and purchase. That's why prices are going up, which means it's even harder to get into this housing market right now, with homes becoming more and more unaffordable. The National Association of Realtors says the median price of a house, $400,000. That's up about 2% from last year. Diana Olick is joining us now. That is a lot of money. Explain what this means if somebody's thinking, okay, maybe I missed my chance in 2020, 2021 when interest rates were low, mortgage rates were low. You know, I want to maybe buy a house in the next year or so. Is it just bad news bears for them?
You missed your chance big time.
Oh,
I can't say that enough. Look, I'm sorry to say it, but we just got the report from the realtors. Home sales down 2% month to month, down nearly 17% year over year. Why? There is nothing for sale. Believe it or not, the supply of homes on the market right now is the lowest in a quarter of a century.
Wow. And that's generational.
Yeah,
really.
generational. Yeah. And it's half the number of homes that were for sale pre-pandemic. So that's what happened during the pandemic. And mortgage rates, 7.5%.
So why? Are people just clinging to the homes that they have because they don't want to buy another one right now?
Golden handcuffs. That's what we're calling it. If you have a 3% rate, which a lot of us do, and mine is a little bit lower, why would you trade that for 7.5% on the same amount of money? Why would you pay that interest rate just to move to another house? Maybe renovate your house you're in.
Well, it's also, there's this interesting new sort of picture that we're getting late tonight from some of these new earnings from Toll Brothers, right? Showing, as you so aptly described it in the commercial break, the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, exactly. So there's very little supply on the low end of the market. That's why sales are way down on the lower end. There's nothing to buy, and prices are going very high on the low end because there's so much demand. But the luxury guys, Toll Brothers just reported a 77% increase in new contracts year over year in the last quarter. That's 77% more homes they sold, even when their price point is over $1 million, $1.06 million. And that just shows you that these higher mortgage rates are not hitting the higher end buyer as much as they are the entry level buyer.
So what that's saying to us then is that more people are paying money to buy brand new homes that haven't been built yet, right? They're like basically saying, here's my $1 million, go build me a house.
Right, and all the builders are benefiting from the lack of supply on the existing side, but Toll seems to be benefiting more than most because they're not being hit quite as hard by that mortgage rate impact.
It's fascinating. Diana Olick, thank you so much for breaking it down, helping us understand the reality check, if you will. Appreciate it. Time now to get the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And tonight we're talking about the story of Lisa Sensitz, a double mastectomy survivor who found strength in the world of cycling. Lisa is a self-described non-athlete, that's how she's phrased it, who decided to climb on a bike after her surgeries, incredibly going on to win a national championship in her age group. NBC's Kristen Dahlgren, herself a breast cancer and mastectomy survivor, formed a friendship with Lisa and followed her as she took on her very first international race. Check it out.
Lisa Sensitz is a busy Long Island mom, working, chasing 2 young boys.
You want down?
Until a few years ago, the 39-year-old didn't even know how to shift gears on a bicycle. So it's quite a story that got her here, to the windswept Scottish countryside, about to take on the world's best cyclists.
I would have never put my name with the word athlete in any sentence whatsoever growing up.
But for Lisa, cycling became a lifeline, joining her husband Andrew for rides when she was feeling down after the birth of her sons.
So I probably started cycling around 2017 with my husband. Just for fun. Just for fun.
She liked it and even entered some small local races until a longtime fear of Lisa's played out.
Every woman in my immediate line has been affected by breast cancer.
She had no known genetic variant, but started finding masses in her own breasts.
You wake up every morning with this lump in your throat, as if I'm gonna get bad news today. And it just breaks you.
She opted for a preventative double mastectomy, but it left her in extreme pain.
Couldn't raise my arms fully above my head. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't embrace my babies. I couldn't do anything without pain.
Her search for answers led her to Dr. Jonathan Bank, a specialist in post-mastectomy pain syndrome, who was finally able to relieve her agony. Eventually, she got back on her bike.
I said to my coach, I just want to see how strong I can get.
Just how strong is something nobody could have predicted. A test of how her body functions during exercise showed the self-described non-athlete had the capacity of a pro.
Lisa Sensies of One Talk New York 57.
She started winning, and winning, quickly becoming national champion for 35 to 39-year-olds. Dr. Bank, so moved by her story, he started filming a documentary about her recovery.
I was just a woman who got on her bike and happened to be strong.
She just continues to humble me, and I'm just in constant awe of her achievements that are way beyond physical on a bike.
When I was going through similar pain after my mastectomy, Dr. Bank introduced me to Lisa. She became my friend and cheerleader. So like Dr. Bank, I couldn't wait to see her first international race.
Wow, how'd I get here?
Incredible, considering she has raced in less than 10 time trial races ever.
There you go.
This is no big budget operation. We all pitch in to help get her ready. My husband carrying her bike and giving her tips since her own coach isn't here.
It does not get any bigger than this. These are the best of the best from around the world.
These are census of the United States.
Go, 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 go!
Over 35 minutes, the racers pushed themselves to the limit. Lisa fueled by how far she's come.
Now, Lisa! Woo!
What were you thinking about out there?
Over and over. Lisa, just go. Lisa, just go. That's all I kept saying. So it made me cry.
Both of us moved to tears, knowing the true prize.
I really hope that other people who are going through this can feel this amount of pride just to bounce back and know that you can come out the other side better than you ever thought you could before.
A journey she could have never imagined, but one she is determined to embrace with everything she has.
Kristen Dahlgren is joining us now. Somebody's cutting onions in this studio as well. I will just tell you that much.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
No, of course not. Just incredible to watch. And real talk here, right? Because as journalists, so often, you would never cheer for the subject of a story that you're doing. But in this instance, it was just so different for you and for her. And I wonder if you can tell us more about what that was like.
Right. I mean, this one just had so much meaning for me. And that was actually the first time that I had met Lisa in person, was on that trip. But we had just connected, and I met her really at a low point for me. It was 3 years after my mastectomy, and I still had all of this pain and discomfort and was just so uncomfortable all the time and so discouraged. And so I was talking to Dr. Bank about, possible solutions, and he said, you really have to meet this woman. And she just was so generous with her time and talking through what she was going through. And then, I saw this incredible story in her, and I said, I have to share this with people, because like she said right there, she hopes other people see this and realize that they can come out the other side of whatever they're dealing with better than ever. And I just find her so inspirational, and I'm so, blessed to have gotten to spend that time with her and watch her race there.
What was it like seeing her for the first time in person after all those conversations?
You talk about really intimate things with someone. And I think, look, this is a club that nobody wants to belong to, this breast cancer previvor survivor club. And yet the generosity of people that are willing to spend, hours on the phone with you, talking to you about some really intimate things is just, it continues to blow my mind away. So I was so happy to see her there and see her thriving. And, her just positivity is infectious, and she realizes, she says she hit rock bottom and she was able to come back. And I think there's a lesson for all of us in that. You could just push yourself past what you think you can do.
Kristen Dahlgren, thank you so much for bringing us this story. I really, really appreciate you and her. Still to come here on the show. It seems like something maybe is up with Scooter Braun, because a whole bunch of big celebrities, Demi Lovato, Ariana Grande, etc., are reportedly breaking up with them as their manager. What's rumor, what's real, and what it means for the industry writ large, coming up. A lot of questions tonight about one of the biggest managers in the music industry, superstar Scooter Braun. I bet you've heard of him. He's known as the rep and kind of the driving force behind some of the business's biggest names. Think Justin Bieber, David Guetta, the Black Eyed Peas. The list goes on. But now, some new reports tonight that some big-name clients are dropping him, one after the other. Idina Menzel, for example, Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato. So what's up with this? Nobody knows for sure, although Braun himself went on X, the site formerly known as Twitter, to say this: breaking news, I'm no longer managing myself. A source close to the situation tells NBC he's taken a step back from managing to focus on his new role as CEO of an entertainment company called Hybe America. Keep in mind the backdrop here. It's coming at a time when the streaming business is changing a whole lot about the music industry. Under Braun's management, Ariana Grande, for example, sold 2 million records back in 2014. Her latest album sold about 1 million fewer in 2020. Lovato, 74,000 albums in 2021, only 33,000 a year later. NBC News has reached out to the stars who supposedly dropped Braun for comment. Nothing yet. Jem Aswad, executive music editor at Variety, is joining us now. And Jem, in your latest piece for Variety, you write that a music industry source with knowledge of this is denying a lot of these stories in a statement saying, and I'm quoting here, all of Scooter Braun's clients are under contract and negotiations have been going on for several months as Scooter steps into his larger role as the CEO of that company, saying people are spreading rumors based on what they know, but they are off, et cetera, saying that SB Projects is still handling Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, as they work through this. But I just go back to the headline of that piece, which is, what the hell is going on with Scooter Braun's empire? What is this? Because it is huge news in the arena that you cover.
Yes, it is, but I will say that this is not expected, okay? As soon as he became the CEO of Hybe, which, just for a little background, Hybe is a enormous South Korean company that was behind the rise of BTS. And they acquired the parent company that owns Scooter Braun's management company in 2021 for $1.05 billion. And part of the deal was that Scooter would become CEO of that company. He has been very focused on that. He led one of his biggest deals so far in that role has been buying the hip hop company Quality Control for $320 million. And Quality Control, I would argue that's a bargain, because Quality Control is a home of Migos, Lil Baby, Lil Yachty, City Girls, lots of big rappers. So it's a very smart acquisition. And when you're the CEO of an $11 billion company, you can't really give the kind of day-to-day TLC that his artists are probably used to. So it's not a surprise that he would be stepping back from that role, delegating it to people who work for him, who then effectively become the managers. So a lot of people have been saying to me that this has been the situation actually for years, or the last few years. He's just been gradually pulling back, and that's not a surprise. It happens fairly often.
Jem Aswad, thank you for that super crystal clear explanation. Really appreciate you bringing us your latest reporting and the latest scoop on that one. Thanks. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.